just a little bit today and just share a couple of things that I think are amazing about this Christmas story. The Star of the Lake. The star itself, just think about this for a moment. You know what I'm referring to, of course. The wise men saw the star, and the star led them to Bethlehem where the baby was born in the manger, and so on and so forth. Just imagine for a moment God that made this thing from the time of Adam until the time of Christ. Imagine what he must have thought he saw when he looked down on all of it. I mean, man, we're a mess. From creation until now, I don't think we've ever got it right. We start with Adam and Eve. It seemed like a pretty simple plan. All they had to do was, just enjoy paradise, stay away from one tree. And I don't care how figuratively or literally you interpret that story, the meaning of it is still the same, and that is that man had everything at his fingertips for his pleasure, and he still wanted something he wasn't supposed to have. And that's kind of been the downfall of all of us ever since. Especially perhaps you women who just could not resist the tree. I believe from the time of Adam till now, most of us men only sin because of women. Well, we were doing so good until then. She fell for the line from Satan. The man didn't even have time to regard Satan. But he loved his wife so dearly, he would have done anything for her. And so I think I'm quoting scripture. I think the Bible says she was deceived, and then she caused the downfall of Adam. I may have the words wrong, but you get the idea. It's a mess. Mankind has been a mess. You can't blame it all on Adam. And we'll probably still keep trying to blame it all on Eve, we men. But it's not fair. The truth is, they both had their eyes open. They both knew they were doing something. And then they both lied to cover it up. Unlike you, me, we don't lie to cover up our. Yes, we do. And you'd like to think, okay, God made all this. Remember the story of Nimrod? I mean, man, it was just degenerating, rapid, horrible. And one day he just said, enough, I'm going to flood it. I'm going to save 8 people and start over. And Noah was supposed to be a recreation of what had messed up once before. And who knows? Mine before Adam had messed up. Adam's just our beginning. Adam was told to replenish the earth just like Noah was told to replenish the earth. So, there might have been people here before Adam for all I know. They messed up. I don't know. I just know that Adam is my beginning point with my relationship with God. And it's been a mess. Noah was supposed to be the start of something new. And he didn't do much better. I mean, they came off the ark, planted a vineyard, and next season when they got their harvest, I guess Noah indulged too much, overcame himself with too much of what he had had for a long time on the boat, got drunk. And then one of his sons, make the story whatever you want it to be. It doesn't matter how you interpret what he was covering and how he was, that whole act still points out, we already started messing up again. Already. Fresh off the boat after one harvest of season, we're already messing up again. Son banished from father, and son sinning against father. Not sure what that sin was. Got some pretty good idea. And it just seems like it's just a downward spiral. This man never stops messing up. Moses murdered an Egyptian. He was raised. It's almost like God just ordained everything perfectly. Look, you're born to this Jewish woman, but the Jews are going to need somebody. Well, I'm going to cause her to have to hide you in a basket because she's not supposed to have a son. They're supposed to all male child be destroyed. Look, the princess is going to find you. Don't worry. They're going to pay mom to raise you. You're going to still get to raise your boy and be paid for by Pharaoh's house, and it's going to be cool. And that's a pretty good story. And he gets to be educated in Egypt, raised in the household of Pharaoh. Still knows his mom and his heritage and his lineage. And then he murders an Egyptian soldier who was beating a Jew one day. He might not have meant to kill him, but he certainly beat him and he killed him. And then he just took off and ran and hid way out in Midian somewhere. Long way from home. Wound up staying out there 40 years, marrying a woman, Zipporah, working for her dad, tending sheep, and then, God calls him to come back. And you just like to think that somewhere man can say, I messed up, I'm going to get it right this time. But we never quite seem to get it right. I don't think Moses was a bad man, but he just couldn't get it right. God said, hey, speak to the rock. Moses smote the rock and told the people, you bunch of nuts here. Here's what God and I will do. We will give you water. God didn't tell him to do any of that. And then God pretty much told him, you're not going to get to go see the land that I'm taking everybody to because of what you've done. Just, we never got it right. And so it makes you wonder sometimes if Christ came simply because man was so bad. I mean, isn't that the idea? We need a Redeemer. Christ the Redeemer, the Savior, a holy God who could cleanse us and purify us because that's what we need. Finally, God in His heaven says, I know what I'll have to do for all these nasty, dirty, filthy people. I'll send a Redeemer. And you ask yourself the question, was Christ the act of a desperate God? Was man so wicked that the only thing God could try to do was give him Jesus? Give him his son and try to save mankind. But if that's what God did, just out of desperation trying to save us, he brought his son to this earth. Look at what we've done in the last 2,000 years since his son came. Number one purveyor of pornographic filth in the world. Continuing to abort babies by the tens of millions. Propagating sin on every nation that wants to take money from us as an act of kindness. We are sliding back into a spiritual darkness like man hasn't seen in a long, long time. Anti-God, anti-Christ is much more prevalent and abundant than anti-any other religion in the world. So it kind of makes you wonder if Christ was God's, maybe not knee-jerk reaction, but if Christ was a reaction from God to the wickedness of the world, and what's to say he might not do something else since man is still horribly wicked? Maybe we just think we know the whole story. Maybe Jesus is not the answer. Maybe there's not a rapture coming. Maybe he's not really the solution anymore for the end of the age, since he came once 2,000 years ago and we've screwed it up again. What if God just decides to do something else? It might be a fair question to ask, but it's an easy question to answer. And the answer is simply that he won't. He won't do anything else. What he's done has been done. It will carry us all the way through to the end. And one of the easiest reasons I can say that is because of the star. I know it's a simple point. By no means is it meant to reveal my scientific ignorance. But let me just share in a thumbnail why I tell you that the star proves to me that Christ was not a knee-jerk reaction. And God's not going to do something else since we're so bad. He's already done exactly what he wanted to do. They tell us that the nearest star, not counting our sun, that the nearest star to Earth is 4.3 light years away. That's the closest star. Have you ever been out of the city, out in the country, out in the mountains especially, and looked up and marveled that there are actually stars out there? You don't ever see them anymore. You can lay out your backyard and you can see like, 20 stars. But if you ever get out of Houston and get up in the mountains and crisp, clean, smog-free air, and you look up in the heavens, I'm telling you, it is overwhelming how many millions of stars there are. You couldn't count them in a nice time. If you had a little plastic bubble over you with a grid on it, and you just tried to start counting them in each square, you couldn't do it in a nighttime. Well, one, they keep moving more square as time went by. But they're just too many. The heavens are fabulously filled. If you never get out of the city of Houston, you won't even understand what the psalmist David meant when he said, "When I consider the heavens, the work of thy fingers, the stars, the moon, I have to ask myself, what is man that thou art mindful of him?" David looked at the heavens populated with stars. Even his mind in that scientific age knew enough to know, man, those things must be forever out there, and there's so many of them. And their movements are orchestrated perfectly like a Swiss jewel watch. Well, David might not have thought that, but you might. And then it was David like, man, if God had hung this canopy and put all of this in place in such perfect precision, who am I? Why would he even waste his time listening to me when I cry and whine? Who is man that thou art mindful of him? But I'll tell you who man is that God is mindful of him. He used those very stars at one time to actually tell the gospel story. I walked through the ancient zodiac with you one time, a long time ago, just to show you that this is what the early men used to actually point them to Christ. The Magi who studied the star of the east, they had been watching the star that led them eventually right to that precise moment when there would be a baby in that manger born. And yet, if we understand this process of the speed of light, the nearest star to us is 4.3 light years away. If light travels at roughly 300,000 meters per second, I think it's like 299 something. Then get this idea. A supernova discovered in 1987, labeled 1987A, took 190,000 light years for its light to reach Earth, which translates roughly this: what we see when we stare through telescopes at that supernova actually occurred 190,000 light years ago. You're not seeing something that happened yesterday. You're seeing something that's so far away from you that when it burst, when it exploded, when the light pattern began screaming through space at 300 meters a second, it would take it 190,000 years if the sky had been totally pitch black dark when that first supernova exploded. It would have been 190,000 light years later before man on earth would have looked up and said, "Oh, look at that." Which indicates to me somebody had been planning for a long time ago to know that a star would need to be hanging in exactly the right place at exactly the right time for men to have many, many years to study it. So when those wise men from the east began following the star to Bethlehem, the light of that star was already ancient by the time men could view it, a design by God that had to reach back in eternity at least 190,000 light years ago. God already designed long before our 6,000 years since Adam. Long before you and I could even imagine what our solar system would look like, God said, one day there will be. And when that day comes, this is what man will be, and this is what he will do, and this is how I'll redeem them. And I will have men write and prophesy and say these things, and they'll look to the stars of the heavens for their guides and their answers. And I'll hang the stars in place so that they can look and find it and find their guide. And in that last moment, one day, somewhere down there at just the right time, they will arrive in the city of Bethlehem, and they'll walk into a stable and worship a baby in a manger, because a star that had to be activated thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of light years ago led them. The star tells us that Christ was God's plan from the very beginning, from even before the beginning, as we can imagine. It's amazing that he used a star. And we know it wasn't a comet. He used a star that had to be put in place so long ago. His plan is immaculate and flawless. The second amazing thing is that he chose to come as a baby. A human. He followed the same process we do. Did you know this sets us apart from all other religions of the world? No other religion, current or in history, has had a God who came to them like our God came to us as a baby. It makes us a standout in the religions of the world. There are so many of those religions that have already perished and died, and they were so powerful in their day. If you've studied Greek and Roman history, you know they had a whole plethora of gods and goddesses. They believed in them. They made temples to worship them. And their life and culture revolved around them. But where are they today? And who can even remember their names except for going to watch some of those names used in current movies once in a while? But nobody would think of any of those names as a god. Well, I take it back. There's always somebody who will think of anything wrong, but nobody that I know of would follow Zeus or Thor or Achilles or any of it. They make gods like, they try to create them like families. Well, this one married that one, and then they got in a fight over that woman, but they're all gods. And they created this entire. And the only reason they created them like families was because there's some kind of human need to connect to a divinity and that would understand us and get us, but that wasn't the answer, and that didn't work, and that didn't last because it wasn't God, it wasn't divine, it was just man-made. In fact, that's what one of the writers kind of describes people do sometimes. They worship the creature more than they worship the Creator, and so they make Him, their God, to be flying things and crawling things, and they create God when they don't recognize and choose to follow the one true God. And man, the mystery of the one true God is overwhelming when you realize that He had planned it from the very beginning to just come and be one of us. Still God, and yet one of us. Impossible for us to comprehend, figure out how that baby could be God, but He was. How that, you saw a little video a while ago, that same baby Jesus could grow into a man and be God, still have His mother telling Him what to do, but He was. How that God could allow men to take Him to a cross and crucify Him and still be God, but He was. And how that man would utter little hints along the way and say things that let them know He was God. He didn't say destroy this temple, and God, I will raise it up, quoting the Scripture, indicating Him. One of the Bible writers said he thought it not, or Christ said he thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Mathematical phrase, equal meaning same as. What's on this side of the equal sign looks different than what's on this side. Parentheses, A's, B's, X's, Y's, and Z's, they don't look like the same formula, but when that equal sign is put between them, you know that whatever you see on this side is the same as whatever's on this side, just looks different. And that's the language used to speak of Christ, who thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Same as. Flesh and blood over here. Mysterious spirit over here, but same God. Unthinkable. And yet, the more you and I celebrate more Christmases, the more we come to appreciate the fact that by coming as a baby, He understands our pains, our hopes, our failures, our fears, our families, our dreams, even death, He understands. We can speak to Him easily, different than anybody else speaks to the God in their faith and religion, because He is us. He is like us. He is us. I don't have to speak to God in a language made just for religion, although sometimes we do. I have been guilty in my early days of speaking to God in the King James language. I have in my early ministry spoken to God as thee and thou. And I think that's okay. I think God probably smiles and responds to thee and thou. I would do the same if my wife would refer to me that way occasionally. What would thou likest me to cook for dinner, for example? I would probably not correct her and say, don't call me thou and thee. I'd probably say, what? You're going to cook? But the pronoun would still be acceptable, and I think that's the way God is. I think that's the way God is with us. We don't have to speak to God. Thou most gracious, He gets it. We're trying to make sure He knows how big and exalted we feel that He is. But the truth is, because He came as a baby, He grew as a young man. He grew like us. And I can shut the door to my room or shut the door to my car or shut the door to my office and I can just talk. And I can just say, God, here's the deal. And He understands. He understands because He was us, unique to any religion. The same thing that makes Him so special and unique in that regard is also one of the reasons why we Christians are hated so badly. The other two dominant religions in the world today secretly undermine Christianity when they can. Don't fool yourself and think that they don't. They do. They discredit Christianity because Christianity can't be valid and then be valid at the same time. Muslims and Jews and Christians all claim to worship the God of Abraham, but all three of us know that none of our religions are valid if the other religion is accurate. Right? If the God of Abraham that the Muslims serve is the right God, then Jesus Christ is an imposter and a liar at worst, or He's just a brother of Muhammad at best. They're going to share an equal throne and equal power. But the real truth is, in the Quran and the religion of Islam, they have a quote written by Muhammad who says that God can have no sons. And therefore Christians who claim that Jesus is the Son of God are blaspheming Muhammad who said God has no sons. And therefore we're just liars. We're just wrong. He may be a prophet and we may recognize him as Isa, but he is not the Son of God, God in the flesh. Jews don't accept that Jesus was God in the flesh because that would make it obvious they missed Him 2,000 years ago, and they're still preparing for Him to come and looking for Him. And that's why the third temple is ready to be built according to the Temple Institute. They have all the furniture and all the building materials, and everything is ready according to the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. They're just waiting on the land to be accessible. However, they can finally one day work an agreement out, move the green line, get the Arabs to agree, the Muslims to agree to let them come into the Dome of the Rock, or war tears it down, or a misguided missile from the Muslims, or finally the Jews just say enough and tell the whole world to back off and do what they want to do. Who knows what's going to unfold? But they're ready, according to the Temple Institute. I have a good friend who travels over there fairly often, and he speaks to Jewish rabbis on a weekly basis. And he told me as recent as 3 weeks ago that the rabbis have already begun training the priest for priesthood ministry. They're ready. That when the day comes, they can erect a temple. They claim to be able to have a temple built in 30 days, according to my friend's rabbi source. They could have the temple, the third temple, built in 30 days, and they already have priesthood trained to walk in and start ministering as priests in the beginning. What's all that mean to us? It means they didn't accept the baby. That's just me and you. We're the only ones that accepted the baby as being God coming to flesh. There's a lot of reasons we accepted that plan. Almost all of them have to do with scriptural prophecies from the Old Testament, but perhaps none quite so clear as Isaiah 9 and 6, who simply wrote, "Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given." He may not have even known what he was writing when he wrote it. He just wrote inspired by God. A child will be born to us. A son is going to be given to us. The government shall eventually be on his shoulder. You're going to come to know him by his name, and his name is going to be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. I think he's talking about our Jesus, our baby that was born and lived, and yes, the same baby Jesus that performed miracles, and then the same baby Jesus that wound up going to the cross as a man, the Savior, the Redeemer. Something else about that baby just suggests to me, it may not be the best way to describe a baby. I put on the screen an imperfect bundle of potential. For him to come as a baby, he came, don't get me on this theological point. I know he was perfect. But he came as an imperfect bundle of potential. I'm not trying to make a theological presumption. I know his perfection. But I know what a baby is. A baby is not perfect. Unless, of course, it's actually Matt's baby. And he's perfect. No, he's not. When they're not looking, he is a brat. He's spoiled. He demands on his own way. He doesn't understand sometimes the difference in an acorn or dog poop in my backyard. She doesn't know that, but he doesn't know the difference between them. He picks up nothing that a little antibacterial soap will not cleanse. But if he was perfect, he would know the difference. He doesn't. You know, the value of God coming to us as a baby is that it's his way of saying, I accept you because I know what you are. You have to grow and learn. You have to broaden your concepts. You don't get it overnight. You get it over repetition. Again, 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 again. Maybe I'm the only one in here who really values that, because you might all have gotten your lessons the first time, but man, I'm that guy Paul wrote to as an adult when he said, some of you are like babes. You're still on milk, you should be on the meat. I know what he meant, what Paul meant, because I'm that guy. I've squabbled and fussed over things that I should have let go of a long, long time ago, and I've hung on to ideology and theology that I should have let go of a long, long time earlier, but I couldn't. It was ingrained in me. It was heritage. It was tradition. It didn't matter that 3 verses here. I just didn't want to lose friends, family, fellowship over a misunderstanding of a few lines, and so I continued to suck on the bottle instead of go to the table where the big folks sat. You know how you do a family reunion. You got the little table over there in the corner or out in the garage. You're smart. Look, we're letting all the children eat at their own table. Way out here in the alley. That's me. I'm going. Only guy whose knees won't fit under the table. There I am. I'm speaking spiritually, you know what I'm saying. It took me a lot longer than it took some of you to just make course correction and adjustments along the way. But you know what my consolation is today? My Savior came as an imperfect bundle of potential. So He recognizes the potential you have, and He's willing to be patient with the imperfections that you're going through until you reach that potential. Because He was there. Stand, please. I told you there was nothing deep in this today. I believe in Jesus because His star was put in motion light years ago. It led men to find Him in a manger, where He lay just like me, a baby. Just like it. I don't know how long it's been since there was a baby in your family, but it's fun to have one in the family. It's fun to watch my little grandson do dumb things. It's fun to egg him on into doing dumb things. I have taught him things I knew his mother would not approve of on purpose. And I have even told him, when your mother talks way too long at you and correcting you, here's what you learn to do. You just stand there and look sweet and you say, jibber jabber. Jib, 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 jibber, jibber jabber. And he can say, jibber jabber. Grandpa's taught him to say, yeah, just say jibber. It'll probably give you a whipping or two, but believe me when I tell you it's worth it. I take a whipping or two once in a while, just because it was worth having them. For saying the right thing at the right time. Babies, you can do that with babies. They're not perfect. They're not outstanding. They're just precious. And I have no trouble today believing that's how God looks at me, because that's how He came. You may go home waiting today for God to finally catch up with you and thump you in the back of the head because you're a little brat. Any of y'all's mamas ever thumped you? I guess they don't do it anymore. You want to go to jail for doing that nowadays. My mother could thump me in the back of the head when I was misbehaving. I could be standing right by her thinking she did not know the signs and signals I was passing to somebody around my church. And all of a sudden I could pop! Lights would turn on in my head like a jolt of electricity. And I'd hear her say, behave. And I got it. Yes, ma'am. I'd behave or I'd be more careful. You know. Man, some of us spend our adult Christian lives thinking that's God. We're waiting on God to thump us in the back of the head because our sins are going to catch up to us. We've messed up too many times. Very, very, very difficult for us to get to the concept that there's probably not a thump in the head coming. See, He's already done that to that baby. He punished one so He would not have to punish all. Have you ever got that concept? He laid on one the sins and iniquities of us all. So now, if He turns around and whips me, somebody said, well, now the Bible says, the Lord chastens whom He loves. Yeah. And He did. He chastened me 2,000 years ago. Only He whipped one, so He wouldn't have to continue whipping all. That ever soaked in to you that you can quit waiting on the thump in the back of the head to come from God and just get up and find your potential and live like you're supposed to live? Because He's already whipped one. if he whips you today, shouldn't he apologize to Jesus? Because I know 2,000 years ago, Jesus believed he was carrying the weight and the punishment and the sins for the iniquities of all of mankind upon his shoulders when he went to that hard cross. And it doesn't seem quite biblical that God would say, I know I whipped him, but I'm going to whip you too. That was not his plan. He punished one so that you could get up today and just say, thank you for forgiving me. Man, you washed my sins away. You cleansed me. You made me white as snow. I didn't deserve it. I lied to you. I had to go back and apologize again. And then I lied to you again. And then you should have just been done with me and finished me. Because I promised you I wasn't going to do that again, and then I did it again 2 weeks later. And I'm still trying. I'm going to get it better. Please don't whip me today. There's no whipping today. He's just waiting on you to grow. Come on, babies. Time for babies to grow into men and women. Stop hunkering in the corner waiting on your whipping. It's already been given to Jesus. Baby that was punished for all of us. Man. Somebody say, I was glad when they said unto us, let us go into the house of the Lord. Give the Lord a hand of praise. Now understanding exactly what we are, what makes us tick, what makes us breathe and live, and gives us a little thinking, for knowing us like no one else could ever know us. Our God came to us just like us. In Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. Shake hands. Hug somebody. Love somebody. Squeeze somebody.